So in the days immediately before his crucifixion, Jesus told a parable to those who would crucify him. A parable about a king who sent his slaves into the streets to invite everyone they could find to come to a wedding banquet. And how we love to hear these words of invitation and inclusion. And they echo words which we find in the Old Testament and particularly treasure, like our psalm this morning. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup shall be full. Yes, we love those words of invitation and hospitality. And they are meant for each one of us. And we also know that they're meant for everybody, so that we will all be reconciled with each other at the heavenly wedding feast. But the parable Jesus tells places these words of invitation and hospitality between images of astonishing anger and violence. In the story, the king is enraged by the people who refuse his invitation, who go so far as to kill the people who bring the invitation. And so he sends his troops to destroy them and burn their city. And the man who wanders in without a wedding robe, because he's taken up the invitation issued in the main streets, he's not just thrown out back into the street, but in a rather surreal touch, he is bound hand and foot and thrown into the outer darkness. So wonderful as it is to be invited along with everybody else, you'd better take up that invitation, and you'd better attend appropriately. Many are called, but few are chosen. RSVP or else. But we have to remind ourselves that Jesus told this story days away from being crucified for the sin of the whole world. When he spoke of violence, he did so knowing how violence was about to be visited upon him. And he's drawing attention to the readiness with which those who oppose him will resort to violence. He is drawing our attention to the fear of violence, which will prompt almost all his followers to abandon him to his fate. Jesus dies with his hands and feet pinned to the cross. He dies forsaken, thrown into the outer darkness. So it's when we remember the context in which this parable was told, we realize that Jesus has put himself into the story. The man who was bound hand and foot, who was cast into the outer darkness. In a few days' time, Jesus takes that role in the story upon himself. How often when we read the Bible and we hear about a wrathful God, do we shudder and think, well, but that's how it is. Many are called, but only few are chosen. I'd better make sure that I am chosen. Quite often when we read those passages, we miss the grace of God. In this case, the grace of God is his own Son, placing himself in the position of the one who is punished for not wearing the wedding robe, so that we may stay and enjoy the feast. As we consider our response to this story, and respond we must not forget the grace of God that underpins the decision that we make. The grace of God that is far greater, far deeper, far more powerful than we will ever imagine. We stand now to declare our faith together.